time for all things racing and Jesus with your hosts, Daniel Hillian and Mitch Reynolds.
That's right, man. It is episode 44, the Chad Weenan podcast.
The Chad Weenan podcast. Without Chad Weenan, but
without
but
Chad
number
Weenan.
44, baby. That's right.
The number 44. As always, Mitchell, the Rocket Reynolds. How you doing, Mitch?
What's up? I'm good, Daniel. I'm liking the things I'm surrounded with. Like, I'm feeling super racy. And
little carrot.
Absolutely, but I'm feeling good. Like, looking around, like, oh yeah, baby, that is some good.
Let's just say
stuff.
our studio is starting to look more like a ATV podcast studio, and you guys might be able to see it sooner than you think. So we'll leave that there.
I'm looking forward to it.
Episode 44, man. As always, gotta thank Debbie Bartosik, 88 Live to Ride. You're going to hear about her in today's episode. Rylan Johnson Racing, man. Can't thank Rylan and ATM Motorsports, Mr. Kevin Allen. They helped me a ton get my cross-country machine together. Got to race it last weekend. It went very well. The machine will do more than I can because I'm a washed-up nobody from nowhere.
Come on. Give yourself more than that.
Oh, dude.
But those dudes are killer.
They're great.
They're great guys down in the
Cannot
corner.
thank them enough. Phoenix Handlebars, dude. I loved them. They worked great for me. No problems whatsoever.
Yes.
Get you a set. RITR 15 at checkout to save you some money. B&B Motorsports, man. My CRF is firing fantastic. I don't need any more power, but when I do, I'm one text away from getting the hookup. So
all right.
Hit up Frank Batista there at B&B Motors. And then, of course, 110% nutrition. Had it in the fanny pack Saturday. Got me through the race.
You know, I went back and listened to that fanny pack episode, and man, I laughed and I laughed. And I laughed.
Good.
I mean, I understand now, like the bladder in there.
Yeah.
I understand, but I'm still like envisioning like this cheetah print fanny pack. I mean, I just can't get it out of my mind.
Well, when you get ready, Lisa Crouch has one for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to wear like an all white or all black gear with my cheetah print. Like pink cheetah print or something. I mean, it's gonna be lit.
Well, the gear I was wearing this weekend, it was a black jersey and the top of the pants were black, and so you couldn't even see it. Mine just blended in.
Just blend in the fanny pack.
But no, you want that thing to stand out.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to pop, and I'm like on the podium. I'm going to make sure they zoom in. And I'm going to have my New Balance shoes on and my visor with my white socks. Yes.
Yeah, well, hey, within your fanny pack, get you that 110% nutrition. Use our code REMAIN at checkout to save a little bit. This is a
good
fantastic episode. Yes. We got to visit with
Jason Zittel and Ian Seymour from Square One Speed Channel. I mean,
yes,
Ian runs the channel, but Jason, they're teammates. They do desert racing. They're both vets. That Ian is currently serving. Jason served before. So really, really cool to hear their story and what they're doing out there and how they've connected in the racing world, and hearing about Race to a Race 22 and then this amputee build that they're doing.
Yes.
Building an adaptive ATV for amputee veterans. So you can kind of hear about, you know, just kind of the heart of the guy, like wanting to serve and give back and allow people who don't feel like they have an opportunity to do something. Like, why not?
Yeah.
You know, like we're going to make phone calls. We're going to try to make this happen. And
whatever
we'll mention how people can get involved in that. And then, you know, also how that's this special connection to Miss Debbie and 88 Live to Ride, and hear Jason share about his connection to Matt Bartosik. So just really, 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 cool. Really fun, and you guys are really going to enjoy it.
Yeah,
so.
And there's a couple times where we kind of had to move the conversation along because we would still be talking to them now 30, 40 minutes later because they're cool dudes. They love quads. They are quadists just like we are. And you know, being veterans, they've had some friends and some people that they were connected to or part of their, you know, troop that, you know, died from suicide. And so that's what they're both like, okay, we know there's awareness. Let's start prevention. Yeah. You know, and that's where they've started this race team and bringing guys on. Hey, you like quad? Come join us. Come ride. Come hang out. Come be part of our pit crew at Vegas. Is it Reno to Vegas?
Yeah, Vegas to Reno or Reno to Vegas.
Yeah.
A long ways.
400 miles.
These dudes are racing hours.
Yeah. And so be part of our pit crew, help us out. They've actually got one of their quads they're putting together for one of the amputees that's going to be on display here this coming weekend. I mean, coming up at the Mint 400. I mean, these guys are super cool, super plugged in. They love the sport, and they could not have fit better into this series we're talking about, like an ATV Racing Life. Like, these guys are doing it.
That's right. They're really doing it.
Yeah.
Not just themselves, like back in the racing world, but they're doing it for other people. Like, you know, they understand this community people, and they're like, dude, like, if we can we know this gives us purpose. If people can find their fit and find their purpose, like, we want to bring them into it. And so that's like everything they're doing. But before we get into the interview, I want to rehash, like, you know, Sean Robinson. Kind of that same thing. We're seeing this reoccurring theme, right? Of guys that just love this sport, but realize that life is bigger than just me.
Right.
You know, they get involved in it because it's something they enjoy, and it gives them a passion and something to drive towards. But ultimately, they start making decisions and doing stuff for other people, which is, I mean, it's really what we were built and created for, right? Just have a relationship with God first, but to love other people as well, like take care of people. And that is what all these people are doing within the ATV racing world. That theme has come up over and over again in this 5 installment series that we've done so far.
Yeah, man, it's good. And you even say that, you know, we're all, you were created on purpose for a purpose, and we got a little love, and I want to give it back. Redemption Race Team, they were like, man, we've never heard it worded like that before, but that's true, man. We're all here for a reason, and there's situations in life you can't control, but that doesn't mean that God's not ever been in control as he ever was.
That's right.
You know, and just holding on to that. And one of the things that's cool is these guys have kind of found a niche where they can give back. They can be part of the next chapter of people's lives, you know, that you know, they kind of hopeless, don't really know what to do, and it's like, hey, come race quads, come be part of this thing.
And if you hold on to the end after the interview, we're going to kind of talk about what that looks like in the Christian walk, you know, and how God designed us. Like, we all know that there's something higher than us, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to share with the listeners at the end of this episode is just what that higher purpose is. Yes, we have the lateral purpose of loving other people and providing for them, but ultimately there's that vertical purpose, and the most important thing, and that's having a relationship with God. That's that hole in our heart that we're born with, and we know the answer to that, so we're going to share that in a little bit.
It's going to be good. So, well, I'll tell you what, man, let's get into it. So we're going to catch a little break here, and we'll be right back with Ian and Jason. So y'all stay with us.
Hey, I want to welcome in 2 desert racing guys. These guys are military vets, both served our country. They are building a quad for ATV, for amputee vets. Really, really cool. Jason Zittel, man, welcome in. Tell us about yourself, bud.
So I started racing in 99. I think we have a little bit of the same background, knowing a bunch of the same people. Got into the TQRA scene back in 99. My dad was a Marine Corps vet, so the military has always played a big role in our racing. The military literally provided for us to race when I was growing up as a kid, so that was really cool. And then I made the choice to sign up there in 2006, and I joined the reserves with the same unit that my dad retired from, actually, and we kept racing after we moved to Pennsylvania, started running some of the nationals and stuff that we could. I had a large following in the forum days back in ATV scene, ATV riders days.
Yes.
And got to know John Pellin pretty well and Jorge Cuartas, and eventually got to doing some test riding, model intros, interviews, and a few projects for ATVscene.com back in the day. And I took a small hiatus from racing after 2012. And 10 years later in 2021, I started racing the Work Series. And I met my friend Ian, and we started getting into some desert racing, and now we're talking to you guys. So hopefully we've got bigger and better things to come, and this will be a good outlet for us to kind of share what we're doing and what we got going on.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Ian. That's Ian Seymour with Square One Speed Channel, YouTube. He puts some awesome edits out there of the racing they do out there in the desert. And some builds that they're doing. Just give some great insight. Ian, welcome into the show, man. Tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks. I'm Ian. I'm still currently serving. I geez, man, I didn't really know about ATV racing until way later in life. Got introduced to it as a young kid, but where I grew up in northern Minnesota, it's all 4x4s and everything's about mudding and everything's for work. So if you're riding it hard, you're going to break it. That was always the spiel I got from dad or uncle or something. So I was introduced to ATV racing a little bit later in life, and I think I was a teenager before I really saw it. And then right after high school, went to college for about a year, and then after that year of college, I dropped out, and then I ended up joining the Army 2008, so a little bit after Jason joined, and then somewhere in the middle of military career, found ATVs again, bought an LTR, and then got hooked into it again. And then I had to sell that after getting married. And then years later, I end up out here in Arizona, and I looked at my wife and I said, we're in an off-road mecca of the world. I have to get another one. She just goes, sounds right. So I ended up buying an ATV and decided to start the channel. Really, there was one video prior to that, but I started the channel based off of how I built that thing. And it was all my experience starting from scratch, hence the name Square One. I literally started from square one with a bone stock machine, started building stuff, and decided I'm going to go racing. And I got invited to my first works race in 2020 and raced the last 2 rounds in the C class that year, and I dipped my toe into that pool, and now I'm neck deep at this point.
That's what happens with this racing world, isn't it? You get in it a little bit.
Exactly. And I just slipped right off the diving board in there. And then 2021 is when I think I finally met Jason. It was in the Cedar City round in Cedar City, Utah of Works Racing. It's right before our summer break because it gets too hot down here. And they did it up in Cedar City, Utah. And I'm sure his perspective is a little bit different than mine, but all I remember is riding through the course, and that's like the closest thing we have to GNCC because there's a bunch of trees up there and roots and all that.
Yeah.
And this guy comes walking out of the woods like a pale Sasquatch, and he's like pumping a fist next to the track, and I have no idea who this guy is. And he's just like, yeah, because he's amped up to see ATV racing. It had been years for him. I get to the finish, and he's at the finish line, and I was like, didn't I just see you out in the woods? And he's like, yeah, you did. And we just started talking right there, and we became fast friends after that. And then
my goodness.
Raced the entire 2022 season, wheel to wheel all the time. We're in the whole shots together. I got some shots of us coming up over the hill by the flagpole at Glen Helen. And then shortly after that, we traded beadlock paint in one of the corners.
Yeah, good. Good.
It's been a good time ever since. And we got into desert racing, and it's just exploded from there.
All right, so
that's for sure.
I love it, guys. I mean, what a great relationship you guys have. Like you're loving life, love ATV racing, and having a good time doing it together. So you started going there, the desert racing. So it's a form of racing that Daniel and I have not participated in, so we're not as familiar with it. I mean, we've watched some videos, which kind of equates to me kind of like a cross country, except for not with trees. You're just going wide open through the bushes, through the sand type deal.
Cactus.
Cactus. Rocks.
Yeah.
So
drop offs and G outs.
So tell us, give the world a little insight into desert racing. Tell us what it's about.
Oh, we're still figuring it out to an extent. Hence our name is Team Blind. So we the story, the quick backstory on that was Ian and I, we're all working guys. So we're showing up Saturday or Friday night before the races. Everyone else is getting sight laps and practice. And the first time we're seeing the track is Saturday when
lap
the gate,
one.
Lap one. So we're just going in blind, baby. So Ian had originally a plan to race, I think, a 250R with some guys at Vegas to Reno in 2022. Yeah, 2022. So sometime the end of June, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, I got a crazy idea. I'm in instantly." Well, what are we doing? He said, "We're racing Vegas to Reno." So okay, well, I don't know anything about that stuff, like pit stops, fuel, like we don't know anything. Like we're literally going in blind. So we link up with some good organizations and some people that I'd met. I entered a baby desert race the year before and kind of got my feet wet, and I didn't finish it. And I showed up as a one-man crew. So then I learned that you actually have to have a pit crew. You have to have people
friends.
to fuel you, and stuff like that. So we learned the ropes. So 2022 we entered the expert class in Vegas to Reno, and for one, we finished the race, which is always the goal.
That's a plus.
It's a war of attrition out there for the most part. And coming from a moto background, I'm used to 110%, and then I had to tone it down for works with the longer race, and then desert racing, we're racing 500 miles. So we figured it out. We had some great people fly out, family members from all over the country to help us out for our first Vegas to Reno, and we finished the race and we get second in the expert class.
Dude, that's awesome.
We're like, okay, this is awesome. And
we're hooked.
A few months later, I call Ian and it's my turn. Flip the roles. I said, hey, I got a crazy idea. I'm in. What do we do? And I said, we're going to race the pro class now in desert racing. Okay, I'm in. So we race the desert, the Laughlin Desert Classic in the pro class. I think we got second that race.
Yeah.
And from then it's just been we've been hooked on it, trying to figure out the strategies, building the different bikes, figuring out the gearing, figuring out the tires. So it's still a learning curve for us, but I think we're getting pretty good at it.
Yeah, that's one thing that Ian and I we got to talk a little bit last night on the phone, and just like, I have a background in cross country, and for us, it's a closed course, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, somewhere in there, maybe a little more. But it's, 10, 12 miles, 7 miles, somewhere in that range. And so you're doing 4 or 5 laps. And that's what he's like, in Vegas to Reno, it's just go, just take off. And when you need gas, they'll just show up. They're just there, and you get fuel, and you get a banana, and you just go as fast as you can. And I'm like,
we have a whole bundle every time.
And I'm like, all right, man. Like, when do Mitch and I get on the plane and come out to be like, I'll pit crew. I just want to be there. Like, this sounds so
Whenever
cool.
you want to.
Yeah,
man. Torino's coming up this August.
We have open arms for anyone that's willing to come out and support us. I mean, I think we had 8 states. People flying from 8 states. We rolled 4 chase trucks with 12 people.
Mitch, that's 6 months. We can train. We can do this.
Oh,
6 months away.
We're going to participate.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're first just going to go out and experience it, but we're going to go participate.
That's fine. I'm in. I can train. I have 6 months.
Whatever. That sounds good to me. So let's step back just a little bit. So we know there's 2 of you guys that race together, but it's usually a 3-man team, correct?
Yes.
So
usually.
So you do a 3-man, and then you just decide kind of when you're going to switch off, because some of these are point to point, some of these are long loop, some of these are short course, right? So kind of explain the differences in those to us.
Okay, I'll take that one.
Yep.
Yeah, so we had a crew of about 4 guys, because the year that we started, the course changes because there's certain things they have to deal with as far as like BLM land management and things like that. So the course changes length and how many pits are there. Usually there's about 13 pits on Vegas to Reno, just as an example. So we were going to try to break it up into 4 sections because we had 4 guys. A couple guys had to back out, so I was down to 2. That's when I hit him up. So you just kind of start doing math from there. We had 12 pits that year, so we started going, okay, Jason, you'll get from the start to, we took you to pit 4, which I think was the exchange point that first time. Then the next guy, Justin, he took it from pit 5 all the way to pit 10, which was where I got on. And then I took it from 10 to the finish. And each one of us had, I think Jason had 120 miles, Justin had 150 miles, and I covered the last 130. And that's where we learned.
Daniel's shaking your head.
Just a cool 130 miles. No big deal. No big.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Tuesday to me.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, we started to learn right then, because I mean, basically, it's like, put your money where your mouth is. We're going to go race it, and we'll figure it out as we go, because there's only so much you can talk to other desert racers before you actually experience it and learn what they're talking about. You can't really put it in perspective until you try it. So I talked to Daniel yesterday about this. There's no such thing as a magic bullet.
Right.
So I couldn't take my works quad, which was the red one, war rig over there, and race desert and race MX and race or go out and ride dunes with it. And I was trying to cover too many bases at one time.
Right.
So we took my wife's quad, put my suspension on it, And it was like all these different colors. It was like a silver frame, red arms, black plastics, a little bit of gold and silver mixed it. Like, we tried to make it work. We just put it together. I made sure it was tight. We went with a reliable engine because since you're covering so much distance, you want to be fast. You want to have some power, but it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Right. So built a good engine. It was the 06 platform, which usually people don't use. They like the 05s because they have a taller, tougher transmission, things like that. Again, this is all stuff we're learning as we go. But I threw the bike together. I was like, I'm going stock piston and rings. I got my ported head and a cam and a carburetor from Jeff Schrick up at Oregon Coast Power Sports. Slapped it together. Whole thing was done. Brought it up there, and the thing ran great all the way through the race. We got to the end. We kind of figured it out, and then now we're starting to learn some of the other intricacies as far as, like, you don't necessarily need to stop at every single pit. We have our pit crews. We learned the first year we can make do with 2 chase trucks. It's tough because some of the pits are so far apart, but 3 is always good. We can manage that. We started figuring out like how much fuel we can carry, how far we can go on a tank, the gearing that we're using. That was something big that I learned the last 2 years. I was gearing way too tall because desert racing is all about top speed and handling rough terrain. That's pretty much the gist of it. You go as fast as you can. I think we hit 86 miles an hour this last year across that dry lake bed right before I broke my leg, of course.
No.
But
top speed right before you landed at 0.
Yep. But then I ended up just sticking my foot up on the clutch cover because I broke the foot peg off is why that happened. Stuck my foot up on the clutch cover, rode it into pit 5, handed it off to the next guy. And he rode it with his knee on the seat till he got to the next pit, and Jason able to pull out like a 400EX peg and get it on there, which is another thing we learned in desert racing was, like he said, it's a war of attrition. Right. But you just don't stop. As long as the machine is moving and you can get it from pit to pit, keep going. Obviously, there's like some drop dead times, and you've got trophy trucks coming up on you on these point-to-point races like that. But as long as you keep the thing moving, you can keep it together. People out there are willing to help you get to the finish. Like there was so much help. We had, 3 different sets of tires from different teams because we blew through 4 tires before we got to pit 6. So
we learned to run flats then. Yeah, we figured out that tire spines and stuff like that were absolute necessity.
Yeah. Especially at that level, I mean, even in our local cross country series, I mean, it's a bunch of rednecks that love to get out and race, But if you're going to train, if you're going to spend the money and you're going to do this stuff, the last thing that's going to hold you back is a flat tire. Like, get tire balls, whatever it is you like, get them in there. Like, it's just a little extra security, and it'll help you get to that next pit stop too, for sure.
So what are your guys' form of communication? Like, I know you have a game plan beforehand, like here are the pit stops and here's how we can use it. But like, do you have radio communication? You have hand signals? Like, how are you communicating with one another over
smoke signals?
Smoke's coming from the engine. Like, all right, and we got to pull over.
Flare.
The first year we didn't have any comms. I typically, I carry my phone just because, in case something does happen, but they have rules. If there's a downed rider, you're supposed to stop, and they have a SOS card that you fill out with the mileage, radio frequency, and what their team name is in case they need to get medevac. So the first year we didn't have comms, and you're just screaming literally at the top of your lungs as you're coming into the pit of like what you need. I think you can see that on some of our videos where I'm screaming flat tire at the top of my lungs.
Banana!
And then,
banana!
Last year we got we ended up getting helmet systems installed with handheld radios and push to talk on the handlebars. So when I think they have like a 20-30 mile range depending on where you're at on the track. So when you're at least 100 yards out coming into the pit, you push the button on your handlebars, the radio, hey, I need a flat tire, hey, I need oil, this fell off, this broke, I just crashed, and now I need someone else to get on.
New leg, I need a femur.
Yeah. That's pretty much our limits on comms. The limits on comms, we've got that figured out, which is definitely a necessity. I think it helps save time, for sure. and I think moving forward, we won't go without them now going forward.
Right.
Cool. I like it.
I'm
learning so much as we go. Now, I know you guys run the number 88. So, Jason, you and I have a connection to the number 88. I mean, when people hear 88, a lot of times they think of Joel Hetrick.
Yeah.
But why does Joel Hetrick run the number 88? Do you know, Super D?
Oh,
I do know.
It is in honor of Mr. Matt Bartosik. So, Jason, we both have the connection of Mr. Matt Bartosik, which is why 88 Live to Ride was founded. So tell us of your connection to the 88.
I mean, growing up, Matt was just a few years older than me, and he was from the same area that I was racing in, and at Western Pennsylvania. So he was like our hometown hero. And being so young and being so fast at the time, back when, at the time of his passing, some of those photos of him with Jeremiah Jones, like Jeremiah Jones was like my idol, still is one of my idols. But to see Matt, a hometown guy, so young, coming up and being able to just dice it out like that, and the finishes. So like when Matt passed at the ATV Olympics, like that was absolutely devastating to me. So after that, I had met Debbie at the races a couple times when I was younger, and my dad had always talked to her and things of that nature. We're always hanging around, kind of like the Hetrick crew and stuff. Rich used to do some engines and stuff for us back in the day. And I've always, ever since 2003, I've had a Matt Bartosik sticker on every quad that I own. My parents, till this day, my dad bought a brand new 2022 pickup truck. The first thing he did was put a Matt Bartosik sticker on the back window.
Yep.
Every one of my hard hats at work, all my helmets, every single thing, so it's like Matt's kind of up there guiding the way for me. And I reached out to Debbie over leading up to Vegas to Reno this last year, and I asked her. I said, "Hey, would you mind if we ran the number 88 for our desert racing? This year." I was like, it means so much to us. I've wanted to. Obviously, you can pick any number that you choose, but with something like that, it's something that's so close to home, and the family, and Debbie, she told us out. She said she would be honored, if we would run that number, and so that's why we chose that. And like I said, he was just such a impactful racer in my life, watching him growing up and being at the local races. And we went to all of the Matt Bartosik celebration races up at Maple Shade until I took my hiatus from racing. So I've always followed and kept up to date with 88 Live to Ride, and it's just something that's near and dear to my heart.
Absolutely. I mean, it is awesome. An amazing story. I mean, Matt had an impact on so many of us and a connection. And I mean, that is one thing that is so special about this ATV racing community. Like, I mean, we're a small community. I mean, we're spread out. Like Jason, as you and I visited, we're like, oh yeah, we're connected here and we're connected here and we're connected here. But I mean, those relationships, that's kind of what we always talk about here at Remain in the Race. Like, we love to compete. Once it's in your blood, like, you just love the competition. But honestly, like the way you guys met, like, Jason's just out there just loving life, just shaking his fist out there in the woods. I mean, it's just special. Woo! I mean, you just gotta love this thing, like. So, but give me, like, what is, aside for just the connection of competing and the relationships you have, what are you guys' motivation for being part of this racing community?
Ooh, Ian, go for it. I've been in the community quite some time, but I know you've got, with being a little bit of a freshie, I know you've got a lot of motivation.
Yeah. Man. Well, because I started so late in it, basically I got introduced to riding. My first sport quad was a 2001 400EX that my buddy Mike Sack, he's still back there in Minnesota in Mankato. He's a cop back there. His dad had built a 2001 400EX, and when Mike and I were talking in 2006 to 7, we were both up at Bemidji State University to be football players, and he said something about, back at home, I race ATVs and this and that, and it perked my ears up. Like, you do what?
What?
And he said, whenever you come down, you can ride one of those things. And his dad just got done building it. Well, I eventually went down, rode the thing, bought it off him, and right there was like that very first spark of ATV racing, because that, I mean, I'd been around ATVs since I was little, but I'd never seen the sport quad side of it. Well,
yeah, look at this ATV that doesn't have a rack on it. That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, you can still put a 6-pack rack on there. But,
sure, yeah.
So yeah, and then Mike had these posters, Quad Magazine. Doug Gust was up there. You know, he's up from Wisconsin, you know, not far from us.
Right.
And you see Doug Gust and Jeremiah Jones, still one of my favorite clips of all time. And this is where it really started sinking in worse, was the cool factor of watching Jeremiah Jones in Huevos 5 as he's ripping around that track to that 5.0 song. And he's just absolutely shredding that 250R. And I was like, I don't think I blinked during the entire time. And then
he's going through the whoop section.
Yeah. And then the other guy pegs that shock out and he's done, and Jeremiah's still going. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could ride those things on that level. Well,
only a few people can.
Yeah.
But first taste of actual racing was drag racing. We were doing a bunch of dirt drags and ice drags, and we built crazy stuff like a Bombardier DS650 with a Yamaha R1 street bike engine, like a plus 10 swing arm on it. And my buddy Mike was taking that thing. He's 6'4", 320 pounds at the time, and that guy's just riding that thing down this ice drag at 120 miles an hour. Anyway, get hooked into that stuff, and then I had to leave it all behind when I joined the Army. I joined the Army, started doing all that, and I always felt like I left it behind. I never really got to explore it because I really got started, and then I kind of it dropped off because I had different priorities at that time.
That's right.
And it was in the back of my mind, and in 2010, I bought an LTR 450, and that fire started sparking back up again, and I was like, man, I'm really itching to do this some more. And then I get married, and then I have to sell that. Yeah. Because, again, priorities, got kids and things like that. Once I finally got back out here, our kids are grown. We're not having any more. They're not grown, but they're old enough. And I wanted
old enough to race.
Yeah, old enough to race.
That's right. Yep.
I was able to introduce my son to it, which I thought, if I can get him to experience this at a much younger age than I was able to, I wonder what he'll do with it. You know, just kind of like a shot in the dark, see what happens. So being dad, I'm going to go out there and show him like, hey, I can do this. Maybe you can too. So I went out and did that first race with that ATV. It was like a bone stock 08 TRX 450 because I had seen one of those Hondas in my buddy's garage. Never got to ride it, but it looked so cool to me. Yeah. The old shark gills back there on the airbox. And once I, like I said, dipped my toe into that pool of racing, I jumped in neck deep. I was like, this is exactly what I wanted to do. Right. And I finally get to do it. And I can build the machines myself. I'll figure out how to do it. I'll figure out how to like talk to sponsors and things. I know I don't have a leg to stand on because I'm just starting. Right. But I mean, years down the road, here I am as long as I got enough wind in these sails, I'll keep trying it, go as far as I can with it, and see what happens. You know, what else am I going to do with my time?
Well, and I mean, you've got a great footprint with your YouTube channel. I mean, you're doing builds, you're being informative, you're just showing like the rawness of what it means to be a racer and participate in this stuff. So, I mean, that's really cool. Like, you know, how people can get a glimpse into ATV racing. And that's, you know, this is all part of our series, an ATV Racing Life. And it's for ATV enthusiasts, but also people are like, ATV racing, like that's a thing, you know, and then, you know, they could go over to your channel and they get a little, you know, behind the scenes look at what it looks like to desert race and be part of your world. And it's just really cool because people don't realize, you know, I mean, on a day-to-day, like how many people you run into, they're like, ATV racing, like that's a thing. Oh yeah, there's all forms of it, and it's super cool. So, Jason, so answer, what's your motivation, man? Like, what motivates you to be part of this community and brought you back into this community of ATV racing?
Guys like you. That's, I mean, when I grew up, I mean, I think we both used to run with T Brown back in the day. I raced against Thomas when I was on a blaster. Yeah. You know, and my motivation back then was because it was fun, because I was terrible at any other sport. So my motivation back then down in Texas, everyone else is playing football Friday night. I'm just going to Weatherford motocross track in Texas, going to race motocross. And spending, the early days, it was spending time with my dad. That was the big motivation behind it.
Absolutely.
That was our thing. Weekends were for me and dad going to the races, and my sisters and mom, they'd stay home. Sometimes they'd come with us. And then I started to realize like the friendships and the relationships that you make through it. I was a nerdy kid in school. I raced motocross, little skate punk motocross racer. Didn't have a whole lot of friends in school, but every weekend I got to see my friends that were from different parts of the country, different parts of the state. And then when we started doing nationals, that really transpired into, these are my people, these are my friends. And you go months, or an entire off season without seeing these guys, and you pick up and left off where you did after the last moto.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
And then getting out of it for so long, going hitting the road for work, like Ian said, like I felt like I kept the quad. And when Facebook and social media came around, I was still friends with all these people, so I was always getting to see it. So like that itch was always there.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2012, I said, I'm going to go back at it. I'm going to go back 2012. I'm going to send my stuff out. I'm going to hit it hard. And running into all those guys again 10 years later, 12 years later, since it was like we never even skipped a beat.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then when I got into the works racing and I met Ian, I was living by myself in a little small house in the middle of nowhere, Arizona. So I didn't even have neighbors. So once a month I get to go see that guy and his family and the rest of the racers. And then running into people like Harlan Foley, who's taking the photos that I hadn't seen. I was with him at the ATV Olympics, and this all the camaraderie and the friendships that's my prime motivation. And then getting into the stuff that we're doing with Race to a Race 22, that's really transitioned my gears of why I race now from a personal level to to more of a selfless reason for racing now. So there's a lot of moving parts, but mostly it's for the friendships and the relationships that we build within this community. That's what keeps me going.
I love it. I love like you found your home, or you found where you fit. And what that is, it's so true. We just pick up right where we left off. It might be an off season. It might be years, when we go on those years of hiatus, and then you just pick up with people and you just fit. Like y'all have this common passion and this common thing you feed yourself with, this racing, this competitive nature. And you just establish relationships that are so special. Jason, you talked a little bit about Race to a Race 22. So share with the listeners what this is all about. I know it's promoting veteran suicide awareness, but tell us about it.
So I said earlier when I dabbled my feet in a small baby desert race in 2021, I met a gentleman by the name of Craig McIntosh, and he races a side-by-side for Lone Star out there. And plastered on the side of his side-by-side was Desert Vets Racing. And I said, okay, that's pretty cool. Let me go see what these guys are all about. So I got to talking to him, and what he was doing is he'd bring a veteran out to co-dog for him in his side-by-side. Navigate. That's what they call it out there, is co-dog. And so he's their navigator. He'd bring a random veteran, not random, but a guy out there to experience desert racing. So he gave me his card. And then after Ian called me a year later and about Vegas to Reno, I said, I met this guy last year. I said, I think I was opening up a box from Twin Air and cleaning my house. I found his card. I said, I'm going to call this guy. So I give him a holler, and he says, I'm no longer with them, but I'm with an organization called Race to Race 22. Here's this lady, and ironically, her name is Debbie as well.
Okay.
And we call her Race Mom also. And
the Debbies will provide.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I call her and I said, hey, my name's Jason. We don't know anything about desert racing. We're racing Vegas to Reno. I met a gentleman who says he represents you as well on the side-by-side stuff. I said, we'd like to raise some money for you and promote your organization. She was breathtaking that just some random guy found out about their small charity and wanted to go for it. So we did a GoFundMe the first year to help cover our way, and we donated the rest of the proceeds to them. And after that, Bill and Debbie, I call them Uncle Bill and Race Mom, and they anything that we need. They have a huge shop. They call it the Social Dirt Cantina down in Las Vegas. Full blown race shop. They've been racing desert racing with trophy trucks, and Bill actually used to race 3-wheelers back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
250R desert racing on trikes back then. So every year, Vegas Torino is like our large fundraiser for them. So we raised a bunch of money last year. The fundraiser was just for them, and we go out there, and what we do is, and what they do is, they carry the photo and the story of a veteran that we've lost to suicide with us. And I've got a couple of close friends that I did lose, and Ian has a few guys as well. But we reached out to the families of people that have lost a loved one to veteran suicide, and they hold events, and Debbie goes to every single racer that enters one of these races during tech. She walks down the line of hundreds of racers with this stack of photos of these service members and fellow brothers that we've lost, and asks these racers to carry someone with their story in their truck or their car or their bike or their quad. And the vast majority of the time, 99% of the racers agree and carry these guys' story across the finish line. So that goes back to like the motivation for racing is like, we're not only trying to get ourselves across the finish line, is that we need to get our passengers across the finish line so we can share their stories as well. And I mean, then it goes as far as Dixon Flannel, for example. They released I think it was called the Resilience Flannel, and it was a suicide awareness flannel. And a young lady commented on it that her brother was he was a veteran, and she recently lost him. So I went on Instagram and I reached out to this random lady because she commented on Instagram, and I said, "Hey, my name's Jason. This is what we do. This is the organization that we help represent. We would like to have your permission if we can carry your brother's photo and story." And she went into tears.
Yeah.
She didn't realize that A, like we said, that quad racing was a thing,
right?
But B, that there's people out there that care about the families of, those that got left behind from the service members that we've lost. And that's what we want to continue to promote. And that's part of our program, is getting guys involved in the sport. We bring every race. Me and Ian and I are the core members of our team. We're the founders, but we reach out and we search for vets to come out and, hey, come race on our team. And then the same thing with, the adaptive machine that we'll be getting into. There's guys out there that say, "Man, I can't ride a motorcycle or a quad," and say, "Why not?" Like, to get the camaraderie that you get back from what we're doing, like the relationship and the parallels of being in the service. You get that, to get that camaraderie back and being part of a team again, and feel like there's some sort of purpose out there for you still. To help. We have a mission, and this is what needs to be executed, and let's go do it. It's just the squad mentality comes back together on at these races. So and that's why we welcome anybody, veterans, law enforcement, active duty patriots, anyone that wants to be a part of this program. We're arms wide open.
Wow.
What
a cool program. Jason, I had written down while you were going, like, life is bigger than me. Everything in our world kind of drives us, like, you be happy and it's all about you and consume all these things, right? But what y'all are doing and connecting with other people and bringing awareness. The fact that both you guys served in the military talks about your selfless nature, like that, hey, this life is bigger than me. And you've kind of continued that mentality and that personality that you've developed into the racing world. Like, we want to do this for other people. Like, yeah, we're enjoying it. We're loving the ride, but we want to do this for something bigger than ourselves, because that really gives us purpose and things like that. But you briefly highlighted building an adaptive ATV for amputee veterans. So that's another way that you guys are trying to give back to others, to allow these guys who are lower extremity amputees to participate in quad racing. And you shared with me a little bit about, like, the thumb throttle shifter on the handlebars. But y'all kind of go into this whole build, and then at the end we'll talk about how people can participate or can give to this and take part in it. So take off, guys.
Ian, you want me to take the first part and then?
Yeah, dude, there's so much to digest. I just want to pour my guts out about all this stuff. But yeah, go ahead, tell them about like the parts you were able to gather.
Okay, so going back, originally we built a makeshift one in 2022. So the way it all started was, so Adam Poppenhouse, he's a double amputee. He was in the Army, and he's missing. He's a below the knee and an above the knee amputee. When we brought our quad out there for Vegas to Reno the first year when we met Bill and Debbie, he looks at the thing. He said, "Man, I wish I could do this." And I said, "Well, why not?" He's like, "Bro, I don't have any legs." Like, I'm like, "Well,
can you
we'll
not see, Jason?
It.
Open your eyes, man." Yeah.
He's like, "Dude, I don't have any legs, man."
Yeah.
So our other racer, Justin Jacoby, at the time, he knew a guy that raced dirt bikes that had a Klictronics thumb shift kit. So they had a bone stock LTR, slept in the garage leading up to this desert race in 2022, and they got it to work. So they called themselves Team Dose. It was 3 guys with 2 legs, and they actually finished a 210-mile race.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
70 miles.
That is awesome.
They had wheels from Nitro Circus. The guy in the wheelchair, he helped fabricate some parts for that.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I said, I want to build one that these guys can have available to them at all times. So originally I have an infinite supply of 0405 Honda parts. Ian's got an infinite supply of Honda parts.
Yep.
So we were just going to throw one together, and Maria from FK Rod Ends, that does like all the Heims and sphericals for everything that we use, racing Walsh and all that stuff, she caught wind of it through Debbie. They're very close friends, and she said, "We want to help you guys out with this build." And she was able to sponsor us a little bit, and I said, "Well, I can go find a full-blown race-ready quad," So I got one that was pretty much mostly race-ready, aside from some refreshing and adaptations. And so then it's like, all right, how do I do this? This goes back to like our team blind. It's like, okay, what's everybody else doing? So I reached out to, there was the guy, I think he's paralyzed from the waist down, that just finished the Baja 1000. I reached out to him and he got me some details. I actually spoke to Doug Henry about some stuff about different setups. So he was able to give me a bunch of information. So I just started gathering all these parts, the Klictronics thumb shifter. We've been in touch with Recluse about getting an auto clutch for it. I called a gentleman. I was just doing Google searches, just trying to figure out, there's new things pop up all the time that I don't know what it is or how to do it. And I've got to build this thing for a guy who's missing both his legs. One guy's missing a left leg. 2 guys are missing their right leg. So it's like, I got to build this thing to suit all these guys. So I get a hold of a gentleman named Jeff from Moto Z out of Elma, New York. And my cousin is actually from that area. And I said, "Hey man, we're building this thing. There's a thing. It's called a clake. It's a clutch brake. It's two master cylinders on the left side. One's just for the clutch, and one will engage the clutch and the rear brake at the same time."
Wow.
So we've got that set up. In turn with, I took the shifter, the hand shift block controls from, like, I think it's a Rubicon that uses thumb shifting.
It was either a Rubicon or a Foreman.
Yeah, one of those. It has an electronic thumb shifter, but all the plugs for start, stop, on, off, and lights are the same as the 450R harness.
Yeah, so it's Honda. Yeah, they were smart and put the same. Yeah. Keep going. This is great.
So I dig into the harness. I wired up the Klictronics thumb shifter to the Rubicon shift block, and it worked. So I got that set up, and like just going through all the parts and pieces and trying to figure out what we need to make this thing work. It's like every day there's like an epiphany on things that I can do to make this adaptation. We're going to be modifying the Nerf bars with some extra floorboard footing, but the amount of outreach that people have had for some of these products, and the information that people have been sharing with me on how to do this stuff, it's opened my eyes to like a whole different community, because I'm really good friends with Jorge Cuartas. Obviously anybody that's in the ATV racing community knows George is missing his left leg and he can't shift.
Except for some of the flaggers on the side of the track.
Yeah.
I'd say, some of those stories of George. I'm like, that's just wrong, man.
Yeah, like messing with the leg coming off and all this other stuff. Well,
Yeah.
so he gave me one of his shifter linkages from when he raced a Honda in case we needed it. And that goes back to the community, and the motivation is I hadn't seen George in probably 15 years, and I hit him up, asked him about it. Was like we talk on the phone every day. So I swung through Colorado, met up with him again. He gave me a pile of parts to, hey, let me know. So I think we're actually going to I think George is going to come out at some point once we get it done, and he's going to put on an amputee quad racing school, essentially.
Oh, sweet.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, and that kind of goes back to our motivation is once this thing's done, we don't want to limit it to just veterans in the long run, because, you might have little Johnny that got hit by a car riding his bicycle and he lost his leg, and his friends are riding dirt bikes. It's like, no, hey buddy, you can still do this. These things are out there. So for maybe in the future, a goal of some sort would to maybe come up with a full-blown kit for quads that makes it adaptive based on your what your amputation is, or what your, I don't want to say disability, but what I forget what Debbie uses a word for. It's limited or something along the lines. So we don't like to use the word disability, because these guys truly are not disabled with what they're able to accomplish.
Yeah, they're honestly more able than people that have all their extremities,
Yep.
Handy capable.
And capable.
Yeah, I think that's what Debbie says.
Handy capable.
Handy capable.
Write that
Perfect.
down. Write that down. Handy capable.
So,
That's
that's my spiel on the build. And so I'll be transferring it actually down to Ian this weekend. I was able to get it to a rolling chassis status, and we'll be having our pro desert machine, and we call this thing Project Cyborg, man and machine type of thing.
Yeah.
And so we'll have those on display, on a static display at the Mint 400 during their off-road festival on Fremont Street next week. So then you'll be able to follow Ian once he gets it in his hands. He's going to do what he does best, and that's make some awesome YouTube videos about this build and kind of describing what we're going for with it. So I'm sure he's got a couple things on how he's going to plan to do that.
Yeah, I was going through some of the pictures of your builds, Ian, and one of the cool things I noticed was on your Randy Savage bike. I was like, oh, that's a cool, bar pad. And it's a nice set of Phoenix Racing handlebars. I'm repping my hoodie as we speak, Yeah. So make sure to use that code RITR15 at checkout to save 15% on there.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Yeah. No, Jason's a great
shameless
guy. Yeah, Jason's a great guy. And so, man, it's cool to see. And those are people in the industry that you can reach out to and go, this is what we're doing. And the calls you make, Jason, and people are just like, absolutely, when do you need it? I mean, that is so awesome. And then how cool is social media? Obviously, Mitch and I, we're not that, we live in the same town. You guys meet each other out in the woods, Sasquatch and a racer, but through social media, we're able to do what we're doing, man. And it's just, I love it. And it's so cool that we've got to connect today to help promote what y'all are doing, man. It is so awesome. And if anything else, man, we want to encourage, what are ways that people can, how do people find you guys? How do they get plugged in to help out? Because I have a feeling you're going to get an influx of people going, hey, this is what I can do, or just have questions. So, Jason, how do they get in touch with you, man?
Well, Facebook and Instagram gave me the hammer ban on sharing our website, because apparently I pushed it too hard, and the algorithms didn't like that too much.
Yeah, before we hit record, you were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can head over to teamblindracing.com. Has the links to the raffle that we're doing to give Lone Star's giving away a $500 gift card. We've got Sun F Tires a $400, $200, $100 gift card. Blood Lubricants is giving away a $250 gift card. Super ATV, $200 gift card. And PCI Radios gave us a race radio package to give away.
Oh, sweet.
So they can go to teamblindracing.com to check out the raffle to buy some tickets. Also, there is a link to our GoFundMe on the website as well.
Okay.
And at teamblindracing.com on Instagram. And mine is at Matchbook Nomad. And then, of course, Ian, he's got Square One Speed channel on YouTube and Instagram, Square One Speed. And we're I'll message me after this, and I'll give people my phone number if they want to give me a call. I'll give them Ian's phone number.
Yeah, it's actually 678. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and we'll definitely when we post our stuff on Facebook for listeners, if you want, we'll have the links on there to where people, you're not like, go back and listen, now what he say? Now, if you want to listen to it multiple times, that helps our algorithm for sure, but we'll get those links out there to folks as well for sure. So, man, it has been such a good time visiting with you guys today. I'm hyped up. Like, we've got a little cross-country race next weekend. I'll be cranking that out, and then it's desert time. We got to start training, Mitch. We got to get
training for the desert. Yeah, baby. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Ian, Jason, man, I appreciate y'all for y'all's time. I know we could go on for days, really.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Just getting to know you guys and sharing your stories. They're great. Just both the things that both of you guys participate in, and not only for yourself, but for others. It kind of shows the heart of the individual for you guys. And I love how the ATV racing community brings us together, and I'm thankful we got to share y'all's story. So thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch, Daniel.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, y'all stay with us. We'll be right back. Man, I can't thank Ian and Jason enough for jumping on with us. So cool. They actually, I guess Jason, Mitch reached out to us and was like, hey, I think, what you guys are doing, what we're doing kind of line up. And, just kind of through social media, a conversation was started. And I think in August, we're going to be racing something in the desert, it sounds like. That's the vibe I was getting.
That was a vibe.
Yeah.
That was for sure a vibe.
If nothing, a full-on invitation. So,
yeah.
But those were the type of guys. If you just showed up, they'd be like, yeah, come on, man.
Let's go.
Yeah. But it was so cool to hear about them and what they're doing. And what's cool, Mitch, is this past Sunday, we're actually recording this on a Friday, March 1st. Happy March. But this past Sunday, I had the opportunity to preach at church. And for those of you that know, great. If you don't, I'm just saying what's going on. But Easter is coming. Easter is at the end of this month, okay? And Easter is where we celebrate Jesus Christ overcoming the grave, the death, the resurrection. Such a powerful
time. The most significant event in history. It is the redemptive event for mankind.
Yes.
God's perfect plan.
Yep.
Fulfilled by Jesus Christ, his son.
Yeah. So 40 days before this is the season of Lent. Now, our Catholic brothers and sisters have this Christian tradition that they practice. It's more visible, more part of their tradition than it is ours, but it's still like it's an amazing thing to be part of.
Yep.
And so on Sundays, our church has kind of we're doing a sermon series that each of our staff pastors are taking a week and doing up. The point of the story, Mitch, is this past Sunday, my topic was on sacrifice. And what does it mean to be a living sacrifice? And so we kind of talked about that. What does it mean to take care of your physical body? The body mattered to God. It should matter to us. We talked about what does it mean, inside the family and your relationship with your kids and your spouse and with work and what sacrifice looks like. And what's so cool is you look back as we've moved through this series in ATV Racing Life, at everyone we've talked to get where they are, to do what they're doing, it's required sacrifice.
That's right.
And it's required, I'm going to give up something to do this other thing, And so it was just so cool. Like the whole time they were talking, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, man, these guys are giving up time, resources, finances to help former or fellow veterans,
That's right.
And to help, they don't just want to bring awareness to veteran suicide. They're wanting to prevent it.
That's right.
And they're like, let's get these guys on quads. Let's get them involved and you can hear the passion in their voice, Mitch, of how much racing means to them. And me and you, the whole time, we're sitting here shaking our head like, yes, that's us.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just so cool to hear them to talk about that, you know. And that's just one of the takeaways. I'm like, man, it's just so cool how God works that, you know, here, you know, doing what, you know, the last week of my life has been sacrifice. You know, I've been studying, reading, you know, I want to prepare for the message on Sunday. And then to visit with these guys today, and I'm like, y'all listen to my sermon on Sunday? You know, funny. So it's so cool, man.
Well,
so cool.
I mean, and that's what, you know, Jesus said, really the 2 commandments that he gave. He said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And second, to love others as yourself.
That's
you know,
right.
Love your neighbor as yourself.
That's right.
I mean, so that's that serving, like realizing that life is bigger than me. It's the serving and taking care of other people. But we can't miss the first part. The first part is he designed us to have a relationship with him. And so we have to, first off, we've got to acknowledge that there is a God. There is a higher power than us, and that his, you know, I mean, some people refer to it that way, but we can have a personal relationship with him, and that's through faith in his son, Jesus Christ. But what I wanted to look at today was a series of verses in Acts, and it's talking about the Apostle Paul. Now, just to give a little backstory of who the Apostle Paul is, he was formerly who?
He was Saul. He was a
Christian.
He was a Christian killer, man.
Christian killer.
He was rounding them up.
He was he's like, no, I mean, he was a Jew. He was a Jew's Jew, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, this is after Jesus had died on the cross, had resurrected and ascended back to heaven. And he's going around, you know, because these Jesus followers are popping up everywhere because the Holy Spirit was moving in them, right? And they were preaching the way of Jesus. They're like, man, he really is God's son. And Paul was like, well, Saul of Tarsus at that time was like, I'm not going to have it. Like, I'm shutting this down. He was having people arrested, people killed, beaten. And then all of a sudden, Jesus appears to him on the road to Damascus and said, hey, dude, look at me.
I got a job for you.
Yeah, I am really God, and I'm going to use you in big ways. And his life takes a 180 at that point, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean, 180 degrees. And so he becomes Paul at that point. And we know Paul wrote so much of the New Testament that we have. And he had all these missions. You know, he went and preached the word all over the place because he knew that Jesus was God's son, and that was the most important thing that an individual will ever do in their life. To serve people is to show them, hey, here is a way to have a relationship with God. It's through Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And so I want to read a few verses in Acts that he says here. And I'll start in verse 35, then I'll jump back up to 22. He says, in everything I did, speaking of himself, I showed you that by this kind of hard work we must help the weak, remembering the words the Lord Jesus said himself, it is more blessed to give than to receive. So that's that loving your neighbor. That's really what we see Jason and Ian doing, you know, taking care of guys. But let's jump back up and let's listen to the heart of Paul, of what leads him to say that. He said, and now I am bound by the Spirit to go to Jerusalem. I don't know what awaits me there, except that the Holy Spirit tells me in city after city that jail and suffering lie ahead. But my life is worth nothing to me unless I use it for finishing the work assigned me by the Lord Jesus, the work of telling others the good news about the wonderful grace of God. So that's really the heart of the man. Like, Paul understands, like, my job was once, I felt like, was to shut the Jesus movement down. Then I met Jesus and understood that he was God's resurrected son and that he is the only way to the Father is through him, through faith in him. Yep. And he said, now it is my life's mission to share that with them and to take care of people.
That's right.
I mean, like, that was a man that, and he mentions in there, like, all the suffering and hardships he had. Dude was put in jail. He was beaten. People ridiculed him constantly. Like, dude had a rough life, but he knew that the purpose that God had given him much outweighed his circumstances.
What's crazy, you think about old Paul there. When he was Saul, he had everything. He had the government literally going, yep, go round them up, get rid of them. We're tired of it.
Yep.
And, I mean, I'm assuming wealth, power, anything he wanted. And then he has this moment with Jesus, like encounter that 180 in his life. And you think that at how many times he was probably tempted, how many times the enemy was like, hey, man.
Hey, remember what you used to have? Remember what you used to have?
All you gotta
Everybody
do,
liked you.
All you got to do is
Nobody
stop.
beat you. Nobody threw you in jail. You did
You had
the
food.
throwing in jail. You had food. You had whatever you wanted when
Go
you
look at
wanted
the stoning of Stephen. It literally says, and they laid their coats at the feet of Saul.
Yep.
Because
He
they
was
were like,
there.
hey, Saul, hold my jacket. I got to go take care of Stephen real quick, And and what's crazy, he never does. He never does, because he knew what Christ has done in my life is more powerful than all these other things. And he has a plan, and I'm going to trust him for that. How amazing is that?
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And it's a decision each person in the world has to make. Yeah. And that's what we want to do as well.
Yeah.
Like, we want to share these stories of racing because this is a community that we love and connects us. But this is also a community that we want to show, like, dude, Jesus is the way.
Yeah.
Like, he's the truth. He's alive.
There's more to it than just making a paycheck and showing up at the races. Like, like, I'll say it over and over, man. You were created on purpose for a purpose. And that purpose is to bring glory and honor to God however you were wired.
That's right.
For some of our people that are insane, they do it on 2 wheels.
Fly through the air.
Or fly through the air.
On Big Gulp.
Yeah. Motocross. Daytona's coming up. When we release this, they'll probably be racing at Daytona.
That's right.
Or the next day. So, you guys are nuts. Shout out Rastrelli and Brandon Hogar, boys.
Yeah, let's go. Hold it down, boys.
Yeah. Episode 42. I had to think there for a second.
42. Yeah,
44
we're getting into it.
We're getting into it, man. But dude, it is cool to hear. What Ian and Jason are doing.
Absolutely, and how they're helping their fellow man. They're bringing awareness. They're wanting to prevent suicide.
Yeah.
I mean, let's preserve life. Absolutely. That is important. Save our brothers,
And quad racing is what brought it together.
It is.
Ian even talked about, like, he's got a bike for his son now. His wife, it rides a little bit too.
Yeah.
He's got a machine for her. And I'm just like, families,
and
get into this thing.
That's right. And and then he showed, like, I'm just going to throw it out there with my son, and we'll just see what happens. It's a generational thing. We've talked about it. Posted a deal the other day of you and your dad and Coop, like, just all getting out and enjoying racing, doing the thing.
Yes.
So awesome.
So awesome.
But here it is. Ian decides to get back into this thing, or get into it a little heavier, and then here he sees this crazy guy Jason out in the woods
cheering him on.
Yeah, and then the collaboration of those guys, like the impact they have already made, and the impact that they're going to make on so many lives, man, it's incredible. It's incredible. Quad racing, ATV racing, it's nothing like it.
More people should do it, man. I mean, literally, get online. Send us a message. If you want a quad, we'll help you find one. No problem.
Yeah,
get online, find you something. Do like Ian said. He said, I had a bone stock LTR. Started riding, and then, got married, and then found me a TRX bone stock and just started adding to it. And man, when you see their social media and what they're doing, man, they are building some sweet rides.
And they're having a good time with it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I was telling Ian, we were talking, I was like, I just finished up my hybrid. He goes, what motor you got in there? I said, well, mine's a CRF. I said, Mitch has got a KTM, and he's like, oh, dude.
He was all over. I was actually just messaging a guy this week. He was asking me, like, is the hybrid really worth it? And I'm like, it's a cheat code. Like, I said, yes. Now I won't deny that a TRX set up right can win. I mean, we have seen it happen.
Yes.
But week in and week out, odds are that the hybrid has the advantage. I mean, you and I know it. It is. It's a different level, and it's why so many people are doing it. So yes.
The reliability. Boom. Yes. Yeah. And the maintenance, change the oil in it, put a new filter in it.
Let's go.
And send it.
Yeah. So it's the initial work. It's the initial investment. That's the hit. But then after that, like, you just get to race week in and week out. You don't have to worry about the training. You don't have to worry about, this compression's so tight that, man, I'm going to need to freshen this thing in 10 hours, like, you just ride the wheels off the thing,
Just ride it, man. And dude, there is nothing cooler than when you're rolling up to the line and people do that double take, they're like, what is that?
I'll tell you one thing cooler than that is the fact that I don't have to get off the seat. I just hit a button.
Oh yeah. That's right. Everybody jumping up and kicking. You're like, oh, let me do this with one finger. Fires up real quick. Yeah, I love it. Oh, the other reason everyone should go to a hybrid, you don't have to worry about the fuel draining out of the carburetor when you stand it on the grab bar. So, you don't believe?
Yes, yeah.
It's
I'm
so
with you.
so
the
magical.
float hangs, and then it
Yes,
then fuels
and it
in your rig
dumps fuel.
or in your shop, garage,
wherever.
whatever.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, and you don't have to, because our friend Bud, we've talked about Bud on the pod before. Every time since I was like 12 years old, would pull a four-wheeler in a trailer to go, turn the fuel off, turn the fuel. I'm like, dude, chill out, and you don't have to worry about it.
Don't have to worry about it.
Stand that thing up wherever you want. It's not going to leak or nothing. And I'm just like, I was washing. It was Monday afternoon, beautiful day here in Arkansas. February, 80 degrees,
Crazy.
Yeah, and I was out there pressure washing, and I stood it up on the grab bar, and I was like, oh, I got to turn, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to turn the fuel off.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't, is it worth spending the money so you don't have to turn a knob and leak gas everywhere? Yeah, it is. So you should do it.
Get a hold of JB. Get a hold of RJR. These guys can get you set up.
Yep,
for
absolutely.
Sure. All right.
Yep. Well, hey, man, episode 44, dynamite. Probably Sean.
Double dynamite.
They've all been good. They've all been good.
I agree. I mean, it's just like every time we get to experience this, it's a little more humbling. Like, dude, how cool that we get to be a part of this. Like, just sharing people's story. Yeah. And, it's great.
It is. It is so much fun, and it's cool to be part of. And, here's something. Here's before we go. Let's see. Coming up May, it's going to be almost 3 years ago. 3 years ago, buddy.
May 3 years ago that this thing was given live?
Nope.
No, okay.
May 3 years ago. You were all over the internet. Let's put it that way.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Yeah. I was. I broke my ankle. And had to have surgery. Uh-huh. So, yeah. Not that you give injury an anniversary, but it was definitely a turning point in life. It was. You're like, you're trajecting this way, and God's like, hey, I've got other plans. I'm going to continue to use you. You're going to be in a different capacity. So yeah. I mean, had that never happened, this right here wouldn't be happening.
That's what I'm saying. And so we go into, Christmas 21. We're sitting down having coffee, and you're like, dude, how do we stay plugged in? I love the community. He said, but I think I think I'm turning the page in the book on chapters, and I think I'm on to the next chapter. I raced. I had a family, came back and raced, but I think there's something. What do we do? And we're with our buddy Ryan. Shout out Ryan. And it's like, let's do a podcast. Yep. And here we are we're into season 3 now. We're talking to guys from the desert. Yep. It's just so it is so cool. Just being obedient and taking a risk. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen. It's like, hey, let's just be faithful. Let's reach out. Let's see what happens. And here we are, man. We've got builders brawls coming up.
Absolutely.
We'll be at. You want to tell people where we're going?
Well, you can. I was going to share just a little bit.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Something else.
Yeah,
so
hit me with
it. When you're faithful with a little, God gives you a little more, doesn't He?
Yep.
So been working on something, man.
Yeah.
And
you have.
Son of Thunder is going to be back involved with remaining the race in this capacity. Maybe featured on the pod some, but man, just this disciple group. That's what it's going to be, man. Yeah. Just guys who want to be faithful, who want to grow in faithfulness to God, and have a group that teaches you how to study the Bible, how to pray, and how to grow and live out what it means to be a Christian, man. Yeah. I've been putting that together, cool. So that's going to be the next thing with remaining the race, and I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be great.
It's going to be a good time. Episode 44, a good time. Builders Brawl, good time. This is gonna be a fun season. Every season we've added to what we're doing.
That's right.
And more people are jumping on board. Hey man, and it's like, yeah, dude, let's go.
Let's go.
It is fun. So thank you to all of our listeners, all of our sponsors, man. You make it, our partners. You make it happen.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be awesome. So, anything else you want to talk about before we roll up out of here?
I think that is it for number 44, baby.
Number 44 is done. It's over with.
Sayonara.
Probably one of my favorite. They're all my favorite. I'm not gonna lie.
The favorite one that you did today.
That's a good one. Right. Yeah. Well, hey, man, close us out of this thing. Let's roll on.
All right. Father God, we thank you for loving us. God, we thank you for connecting us with yourself through your Son, God. We thank you for connecting us with other people, Lord. We pray you'll use us in a great way, God. You'll raise up faithful men out there, God, that will participate and be part of this movement, God, that just revival would start in the ATV racing community, God. We thank you for the things you blessed us with and continue to use us in. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. That's episode 44, and we will catch you in the next one.